You can toast yourself later, Andrea. So I think we have some questions to kick off with, if there are any coming up. Okay, so we're going to start with, what can readers expect from your new 4-part series, The $1 Billion Matches? Who wants to start?
This is really, I guess, Jess is a good person, because you have the last book that actually talks about the woman that set up the dating agency in the first place, I suppose.
That's true. So my heroine Madison owns a very exclusive elite dating agency that's only for the wealthy, the well-connected, the famous, people who want love, but are also very wary of weeding out people who might be fortune hunters or after them for the wrong reasons. So she has this very exclusive dating agency, and she sets up other couples. And my book's the final one in the series where she inadvertently sets herself up on a date. But the other 3 books are all couples that she has set together in various different guises. So it's very glamorous. The idea is that she sends them away for a week to somewhere quite exclusive, but also very solitary, so they get to know each other over the space of a week and see if love blossoms. So she's a very high hit rate, so she's very good at reading people. So each of the other books is set they're all set somewhere very, very different, but very beautiful, very exclusive, very romantic, which makes it really fun to write, because it meant we were just all writing in really different locations, but really, really beautiful locations, which during lockdown is the absolute key to romance writing, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And I'm pretty sure that all of the characters are resolute against falling in love. That's part of the reason that they've gone through this agency, which is we're just going to give you a week to casually connect with somebody and just kind of relax and perhaps get ready for in my book, kind of get ready for the next stage of your life, and just some companionship. That because that's what both parties want, there shouldn't be any problem, right?
Yeah, right. I know someone that actually did do this. He actually is quite wealthy, and he actually did go to one of these exclusive dating agencies and had the most amazing day through this. And so when you actually pitched the idea to us authors for this storyline, I was like, yes, this is brilliant. So I actually quizzed him afterwards.
Good. And did he make a $1 billion match or not?
He didn't. And the woman that he actually dated is a celebrity. She is someone well known. So it's quite fascinating. And it's all, of course, non-disclosure agreements and everything. So you're very well protected, aren't you? So you're sort of like, you cut away from the press, and you're safe, aren't you, in that week to actually enjoy yourself. And, you're free of that kind of like that constant social media storm that you're always surrounded by, I guess, when you're a celebrity. So that's what made it so interesting to write these stories.
One of the things I liked about mine is that neither the hero nor the heroine actually signed up for the dating agency. They both got conned into it. They both set up and sent there, and they're both like, well, I can't fall in love. This is ridiculous because I'm not even supposed to think it.
Yes. Oh, it's brilliant, Sophie. Brilliant book.
My character's somewhat the same. Both of them recovering from a different kind of a trauma in their life, and other people in their life saying, hey, you need some kind of a transition, and you've got to kind of get on with your life. So, here's a great idea. And, oh, you haven't had a date in a long time. So,
yours, Andy, it sounds just so hyper emotional. I can't wait for it.
They have some really sad stories in mine, yes, but you can imagine. So we're in Puerto Rico, and as somebody just said, lockdown, good time to do research on Puerto Rico.
I think it's all that armchair travel, isn't it? Sort of take people where they can't go at the moment, and take them around the world. So, ladies, what was it like working together on the $1 Billion Matches? Because obviously we gave you some ideas, and then you ran with it and worked together and brought them all to life.
Yeah, that was definitely a first for me, that it was a what I guess is referred to as an editorial-driven series as opposed to an author-driven. So we had that commonality that was going to tie them all together with the matchmaker, and then also we were given a pretty specific storyline. So that was very interesting for me. I'd never done that before, and it was wonderful. I'm going to tell you that despite our miles, we chat all the time, so it was very easy for us to just slip into our other topics, such as our husbands and our children. I think everybody just kind of instigated. I'm going to do with when it was the overlap with the matchmaker, kind of checking with Jessica as our captain. I'm thinking of having this interaction with the matchmaker. Does that seem like that's what everyone's going to do?
Yeah,
mine was great because mine was the first one. I kind of got to set the rules, except I didn't, because obviously I was really late writing it, so everyone else was already writing theirs and coming through going, I'm doing that. Like, I'm doing it. I haven't done it yet.
Yeah, because I was writing Madison at home to start off with, so she was instigating some of these matches and sort of sitting at home, setting them up, setting up the hero with who she thought would be the right person for him, until it all went wrong and she had to take over. I had to keep sending them all notes, sort of saying, oh, by the way, I've said this. Oh, by the way, this is how she matches them. I hope that fits in with your book. And hoping that they would say yes. But I could have changed it if not. But I just had to sort of do that, setting her in her own world, and that would show her at work. So we just sent out a list, and it's sorry, the cat's just trying to interrupt. It happens to me all the time. It happens in my job interview. I always really like working with other authors for this reason. It's really Sophie and I have worked together on 2 series, Sophie, or 3. I lose track, but it's always fun because then you've got that interaction and it just turns it into a bit more of a team job rather than
not doing it alone
most of the time.
It's that whole solitary thing when you're writing, isn't it? And trying to crack it, especially in lockdown as well, when you are isolated and writing, you're even more isolated. So having a project where you're working together was just lovely, and to bounce ideas around and things, and what do you think of this type thing. It's lovely to have that sort of community feel. It was really good.
The world that I'm writing in, I love seeing other people in it too. It's like it's less lonely. People are in my world too. We're all playing together.
That's it.
Absolutely.
Oh, I can see Ian's popped up. Oh, and Kirsty's there. Hi, Kirsty. Just look at the comments.
Everyone. We have another question popping up. What the question is, are the books I think we slightly touched on this, but we can probably go into a bit more detail. Are the books very different from one another, but what also unites them as a series?
So obviously the dating agency, definitely unites with the series. But all the characters are very different, I think, which is quite lovely. 4 books and then you've got 8 very different characters in them, I think, for sure.
Right. And the characters have no interaction with each other. There's no interaction between the love stories. It's not like
it's only Madison
and everyone's saying, mine was. It seemed that the focus on mine was people who had been through a very heavy emotional things, and they were romanced by their location, as much as each other, because that was kind of a getaway that they hadn't anticipated and hadn't maybe anticipated gotten so swept away in. I think we all wrote, very whisk you away kind of a book. Yeah. And then that's because who wouldn't want that, as a reader too.
Exactly, that's it. Yeah, and mine was a second chance romance, so that was lovely, picking up 2 characters that haven't seen each other for 10 years, and then fate brings them together again. So that was fabulous to write.
Where was yours set? So we go through the locations as well. So Andrea, yours was Puerto Rico. Rachel, where was yours?
I have the Seychelles. I had my backdrop on my desktop on my computer was the Seychelles for the whole time I was writing it, and I just looked at it going, oh, can I just be there now, please? But I was writing it in a big woolen scarf. I had like the fingerless gloves on. It's amazing that you can get transported away from it.
Sorry, moving the cat again. Mine was Indonesia, and it was set on a boat, which was beautiful. And I do tend to set books on boats quite a lot because I have these dreams. I don't think I could even drive a boat because I can't even reverse parallel park. But I have dreams.
You've got loads of space.
But it's just that stress of like you'd have to go through things. I watched a lot of Below Deck, just to immerse myself in the world of super yachts. So that was lovely. And what was really nice about Madison is she's an ex-child star, and I'd always wanted to write a book about an ex-child star. I read Shirley Temple's autobiography when I was about 12, and that kind of sadness of growing up with fame and no one liking you for you, and then parents who maybe don't have your best interest at heart. And I really always thought I wanted to write that. So when we got the sort of scenarios and I read it through, I was like, I really want Madison. And then when at the end it had my name against it, so I was like, yes, I can write my Shirley Temple book at last. And so then I made the hero a tennis player, because that was always the other thing I always wanted to do. So that was kind of exciting, because then you've got that kind of young fame thing together. Two people who are kind of really nervous about being in the public eye was my story.
Yeah,
I see Ian in the comments, and Natalie. Hello. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, yeah, Natalie. Hi. Oh, I'm Lauren. Yeah.
Yeah, lots of people. Kate, Sophie, do you want to just tell us where yours is set so that we get a full scope of the locations?
Mine's Lake Geneva, at least to start with. They have their week in Lake Geneva, and a very exclusive and secluded villa just on the shores of the lake, where they get to hide out for a bit, but they do sneak out and go sightseeing. And then they both go home, because obviously they've had their week and we're all done.
So lots of
yeah. You've got magical elves. I love your magical elves. They come and like, dinner is there. They go out on the balcony and dinner is there. This is amazing. And they're like psychic. I love that whole thing of like, it's like they just crept out and they've gone, put the dinner out quickly, run away quick before they come and see us. You know, it was just so beautiful how you kept it really sort of secluded and private and exclusive. It was lovely. The little elves. I love the elves. They were fun.
We all need elves in our lives.
I know. Give me the elves.
So for anyone who's joining us, if you have any questions for the authors, please do pop them in the comments so that we can make sure we ask them. We have a few questions popped up already. One question is, how do you get over writer's block? We probably get asked this a lot.
Just Sophie, do you want to go first? Or should we go in order of books?
Yeah. I think what tends to get me through writer's block is looking at the budget and realizing I can't pay the mortgage next month. Seriously, all I can do is keep going. It's my job. I don't have the option to have writer's block. I just have to keep writing. If I'm really stuck on something, I'll go and work on something else, or I'll go and brainstorm something else, or I'll do another admin task, or I'll go and do something really, really boring. Anything boring, sort of like cleaning or dishes, or even just go for a walk. If I just go for a walk and don't listen to anything, don't do anything, don't meet anybody, eventually, whatever the problem is, works its way out in my head, but I'm not paying attention.
Yeah. I think I'm very similar to you. I think it is that whole thing of like not focusing on the problem. So whether you're cleaning the toilet or whatever you're doing, because you're not focusing on it, it comes to you. So like exercise is a big thing for me. So I'll sit on the bike and my brain will be ticking over, and then it'll come to me. But when I sit there and try and work through it actively at the computer, it's just no go.
I think I allow myself to write really boring things because I'm always like, I can edit it later. So it doesn't always get edited out, but they tend to eat a lot, because if the worst comes to worst, I'll just have them go out for dinner and talk really boring books. And then I just describe the food in huge long detail, because you know, food.
I like that. That's good. I'm going to try that one next time.
And then I edit it later and go, this is really boring. I can't believe I wrote 2,000 words about a scone. So let's just try and jazz this up. So that's how I do it. And I dog walk. So I dog walk a lot, and that's where ideas tend to come into my head.
Makes sense.
And kind of dovetailing on what everybody was saying, sometimes I don't think writer's block means that you can't write. It's just that you can't write the thing that you were setting out to write just then, probably because you've gotten yourself into this big state of perfectionism about it. You know, you've made your playlist, you've poured your drink, you're wearing your lucky shirt. You know, it's like it becomes like pressure. So I always say that, like what Jessica just said, just write garbage. Just write garbage. You can fix it later. And sure enough, once you get all of that out, then you sort of usually get to the gem that you were weren't able to get at the top of the day because you put too much on yourself.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, I haven't even thought that, but you're right. I've even got a ring. I've got a ring, and it says "You can do it." It's actually engraved on the ring, and I'll put it on my thumb, and I'll look at it and go, right, you can do it. You can really do it, Rachel. You can really do it.
And also, just write anything, like you say, like writing. If I set the timer, if I say, okay, I just have to write for 5 minutes. If I just do 5 minutes, I can do tea, or I can do something else, and I set the timer. And once you get started, suddenly it starts working. It's just getting going in the first place. I find writing the first word so much harder than writing the 5,000th word.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, and sometimes I'll be typing and it'll say fantastic, funny, sexy scene goes here, and then get on. I'm actually able to do that day.
Yeah. If I do that, where I'm going to send it to Megan, it's still going to be there, and I won't have written it.
Brilliant.
That's the idea.
I love it.
That's some really, really interesting advice, and lots of interesting ways to like overcome that blockage. Kirsty has a question for you. She has asked, how has your writing routine changed during lockdown, if at all?
Mine mostly involved being kicked out of my study. I'm in my study because I've kicked my husband back out again, but mostly I've been kicked out of here while he's been working from home. The biggest change is when we were homeschooling the kids. I've got 2 children, 12 and 5. We've done a lot of homeschooling, and the 5-year-old is not doing it on his own. So there's been a lot of that. So my husband is brilliant. So we split it fairly evenly. And so I would work very early in the morning until about 9 or 10 o'clock. And he'd do the first couple of tasks with Sam, and then we'd swap, and I'd do the rest of the homeschool and things, and he'd work his core hours with his very understanding company, thank God. And then when he'd finished, I'd come back in and I'd work until, whenever, while he'd do tea. And so they were quite long days. Everything done, and that was good. And now, luckily, they're back at school, and I do give thanks for that every morning.
You can't come in tomorrow. We've got an outbreak. Just send them home.
I live in fear. I live in fear of the early morning text from the school saying, "Oh, off again."
Bubbles burst.
That's it. The words bubble burst. Yeah, that's just no.
Yeah, many of those before Christmas, the whole half term. I don't think he was in more than a week.
No. Yeah, it's horrible, isn't it? Our son got it actually, so he got it from his primary school because it was rife, and yeah, it's just awful, isn't it? And like you, it was a case of getting up early in the morning to start before they started their school day. And then your days just become longer, don't they? Because you're sat there trying to get them to do their work, and you're still thinking about your book, and then you go into your book, and it was really, really tough. And I think I missed going to because writer's block for me, I like to mix it up where I'm writing. So I like to go to a cafe, or I like to just change my environment completely, because sometimes that reset can totally help me. And of course you couldn't do that because everything was closed. So I think I found myself in the weirdest places in my house trying to find a new place to work.
The part I really don't understand, though, is how now that kids are back at school and I have my work time back, I'm still not doing any more every day than I was during lockdown. And I don't understand how that's possible.
I think pressure makes you write as well. I think deadline looming, and suddenly you can push out 6,000 words, 7,000 words. You're like, how did that even happen today? But you
Megan doesn't get angry, but she does get disappointed.
I've never said that.
I'm a terrible liar, and I'm very sorry.
I love it.
For me, it was more that I work anyway. I work full time. Writing is a full-time job, and I work full-time as well. So I've always worked in the evenings, but I lost my commute, and that suddenly I was working in this room and then writing in this room, and I found that a really hard shift, because then I was writing in my workspace, and that didn't work for me. So I do dictate, but I've just bought, as we were discussing before this started, this tablet that allows you to handwrite, and it converts it to text. It was not a cheap buy, and it did feel like a bit of a leap of faith, but that's really changed up the way I'm writing this book, because I'm taking myself out my study, I'm curling up on the sofa, just like in those first days when I was just writing those terrible historicals that bizarrely Mills Boon turned down. I don't understand why. And I'm just back in that state, handwriting away, and then I convert it to text and edit it at the weekends, and that seems to be working. But during lockdown itself, I didn't leave this room for 12, 13, 14 hours a day, and that was tough. I did get terrible cabin.
Yeah,
I'm desperate to hear more about your remarkable incident.
I can't wait to get one. I'm so on that train.
What about you, Andrea?
Yeah, because you're in lockdown, aren't you, Saul? Yeah, you've got it all going on in LA.
Yeah, I mean, we were mostly able to go out for a walk with masks almost every day. Otherwise, I would have gone completely crazy. Well, maybe I did go completely crazy. Not crazy enough to bang out 7,000 words, though. That would never happen. But I think the issue is I live in a relatively small condominium, and my college student and my husband were home. So it's just so much breath in the room, we're just here together all the time. Fortunately getting along, and everybody's sort of doing their own thing, but I think a lot of distractions. You just had to just flat out accept that you're just going to be distracted constantly, and finding that way to just sit back down and zero in again.
Yeah, it's the attention span, isn't it? As well, attention span for me seems to be a lot shorter than it used to be.
Yeah,
I find.
Yeah, definitely. It's been challenging all round, hasn't it? But, well done. But you got the books out, and the books have been brilliant. So congratulations to you all. Well done.
Doesn't it? It still feels that, right? Like Sophie was saying, it still feels that COVID's been so huge. It's just kind of this underlying thing that's just buzzing. All the time. So even regardless of my time available to write, you are just kind of distracted.
Yeah, totally.
I definitely found that at the start. I couldn't do anything until I knew what was happening. Happening. When I was looking for a big announcement or something, I just can't. I can't focus on anything except what's happening next. I think that distraction of the whole global situation has been
totally. Yeah.
I do think that your books have helped provide some escapism right now that I think everyone desperately needs, and a bit of travel,
Hope, isn't it? It is hope. They do bring hope. And that's what I love about them. Yeah. Hugging a book.
Definitely. So Susan has asked a question.
Hi, Susan.
How did you get started with Mills and Boon?
Do you want to go first, Sophie? I'm going to go across the table.
I got started with Mills and Boon quite a while ago now. I can't remember how many years, maybe 8, 9 years. They did a call for books for the Cherish line, as it was then, and they were going to do a sort of speeded up submission process, and if you sent in at a certain time, they'd get back to you really quickly. And I had a book that I was working on that fitted the submission guidelines, so I sent that in, and they came back and said, "Oh, can we see some more?" And I thought, I'll write some more then. So I wrote some more and that. And they said, "Right, can we see the rest of it?" I went, the rest of it. And it took a long time going back and forth with a lot of edits, because it was my first book. It wasn't great, but I had a lot of help from my editor at the time, and we worked on it together, and we got it up to a state where I got a phone call from Flo. Who wasn't my editor at the time. She phoned, my editor was off. We've just got this opportunity. We just wondering how the edits are going, because we need to fill a slot, and I love it. 24, 48 hours, it's yours. It's like, oh, right. I haven't edited it either. So it was my daughter's birthday. It was her birthday, I think, and it was her birthday party that weekend, and I had the flu for added bonus fun.
Oh my god!
I did it. I had 24 hours of just editing this book from start to finish, and I sent it off, and I threw the birthday party, and then I went to bed. Took all the paracetamol, I went to bed, and 2 days later I got a phone call saying we want to buy the book. So
and you lived it after all that. That's amazing.
That's a story. And you, Andrea, how did you get started with Mills and Boon?
Okay. So my background was in journalism. I was a journalist for very many years, and I always wanted to write fiction. And I decided that I wanted to write romance. And I will tell you, I kind of say this to people who say, how did you get in and all that, is I just read so many of them that, I think I knew which line I wanted to write for, and I kind of knew what was going on with that line. So I was pretty lucky. I got a call with my first submission. I got a call for, I had sent in a partial, which is a synopsis and 3 chapters for anybody who doesn't know. And they asked to revise and resubmit that, and along with that, the rest of the manuscript. And then it was Nick Cause was my first editor and offered me a 2-book deal. And I actually haven't been around all that long. The first book was published in 2017.
I think you're right about the reading. I think that was something that stood me in good stead, that when the opportunity came up, I knew what that meant, because I had read so many books in that line, and I'd read books in the other lines as well. So I knew what it didn't mean. I knew it wasn't. It wasn't that. I knew exactly what those books felt like, and I knew that my so
right. When we we're privileged that sometimes early young writers or writers wanting to write for Harlequin will ask us something. We'll say something like, I don't know which line my story fits in. And when they say that to me, I think there's already a problem, because these are very different books. So I think knowing what you want to write, which line you want to write for, start with that, rather than trying to fit pegs into square pegs into round holes and all that.
Yeah, brilliant advice. Jessica, what about you?
Well, I wanted to write historical, but I was not a historical writer. So I did try a couple, but I didn't ever finish the book. So there's the advice: always finish the book, unless of course you're Sophie, in which case you don't need to. So I sent in a couple of partials, and they weren't very good. And then I entered. There was a New Voices competition in 2010. I entered that with one of my not very good historicals. But thanks to that, I did a course and joined the RNA. And I did the course with the great Jessica Hart, who's one of the best writers for our line, sadly no longer writes for it. So I was lucky enough to live in the same city. So I devoured all her wisdom. And then as I joined the RNA, I had to write a manuscript and get it in by that August. So I had a deadline, which I'm really deadline orientated. So that worked for me. So I sent that into the RNA, and during that course, and having read a lot of Jessica's books and other really vintage true love writers like Liz Fielding, I had a real field. I thought, this is actually alive for me, not historical. So I wrote a contemporary, sent it to the RNA, and they passed it straight to Mills Boon. It was a couple of years after I got published. It took a while to get revised and resubmit, and it took me another year to do it. But by the time I did get my offer, I had 2 manuscripts in with Mills Boon, and they offered me on both. So that was quite a nice position to be in. And I also got a call from Flo, which was poor Flo. She must get so many gibbering people. Are you sure you want to take me?
Sobbing and screaming. Yeah.
What?
That's it. I love it.
Sure, what about you?
So I had I like you, Jess. I tried to write an historical about 10.
One day we'll do it.
and I sent it in, and I got a reply, and it was quite detailed actually. But I just took the whole reject means you can't write for toffee and left it and parked it. I had young kids at the time, and I was like, can't write. Didn't really accept the fact that there was advice in the letter about what you needed to think about. And then there was an attempted to write competition that Mills Boon put out a couple of years ago, and I applied it. I went into that, and I had some advice from one of the authors that was involved in there, saying you've got a really good voice, even though you didn't come anywhere, keep trying. And then I sent in a modern originally, and it got pulled out of the slush pile by Julia Williams, and she replied to me and she said, this isn't going to work for modern, I don't think, but we think your voice will work for a very new line we've got coming out, Dare. Would you consider applying to Dare? So I was like, yeah, I'll do that. So I had like a thriller element to it, and she was like, maybe get rid of the thriller element though. Just focus on the romance. So I applied to there was a Dare to Write Blitz that came up. And so I was really lucky because I put into that, and then Flo came back to me and she said that I'm really interested. And we don't like the storyline. would you come to us with 3 other ideas, and we'll pick your best one and then go and write that story. So I gave her some ideas, and she went, this one sounds really good, go with that one, write the first 3 chapters. So I did. And then within a month or two, she came back and went, "Can we offer you a contract?" on three chapters. I was like, "Are you sure?" But I didn't realize the call would be from Flow, because it's a withheld number, and I'm thinking I've already written 3 chapters, so they're not going to offer me a contract on 3 chapters. So when the call came in, I was coming home on the school run, and I ignored it, thinking it was a cold caller. I got in, had people on Flow saying, "I really need to talk to you. Are you available to chat?" And that was it. So I did the whole thing of screaming on the phone to Flow, going, "Oh my God, I was being murdered or something, you know." And that was it. And then the crossover from Dare to True Love actually came about because it was before Dare was going to be cancelled. It was a story idea I had for Dare, but it involved a child, a single dad. And when I pitched it, the response was quite rightly, "This isn't a Dare storyline, but we think it is quite a True Love storyline. What do you think of, trying True Love?" And I was like, "Okay, this is quite different. Dare, True Love. Can I do this?" It was incredible.
All of us have decided that's where you wanted to stay.
Yeah, I do. Honestly, the True Love authors, they rock.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so glad you segued over to True Love. And actually, talking about you writing for Dare, Rachel, and then moving over to Harlequin Romance, the $1 Billion Matches series is a little bit sexier for Harlequin Romance than normal. So do you have any tips on how you write these steamy scenes?
You have no fear. You have to totally just let go. I think that's the thing when you're writing a steamy scene, you can't be held back. You have to be in that moment and you're feeling everything with them, and that natural progression happens because you are so immersed in the scene that if they're getting hot and flustered, you're getting hot and flustered. That's how it works.
Having read the latest Dare, I can confirm that Rachel has no fear.
Yeah, I'm going out with a bang with Dare, yeah, for sure. It just makes for very, very red-faced school runs on an afternoon.
Oh, that's right. I promised the girls I would repeat this story, that I was writing away and my daughter, as I said, college age, not a young child, she came over and was kind of leaning over my shoulder to ask me a question, and her eye caught the word undulating. So now that's become the joke at my house, that she'll come in and she'll go, I'm not disturbing you from undulating. So, yeah, pretty much your whole household is in on that.
I'm going to say some undulating.
I think my advice for writing steamy scenes from writing this particular book is don't do it when your parents are visiting and someone is behind you, because that was an interesting drafting.
I remember the day you wrote that scene, because it was all over Instagram going, "Oh my God." Dad is looking over my shoulder.
Balcony scene as well. Megan, the one you made me cut because it was just too much.
Well, sometimes we have to rein it. It is still Harlequin Romance.
I think, like Rachel said, that you have to be in the thoughts and feelings and heart of both of the characters. Yeah. So it's slow. You're not going to knock out a sex scene quickly, because it's certainly the mechanics of this is where the arm is and this is where the toe is. You don't want to contradict yourself.
It's the middle, isn't it? Yeah, inside.
Yeah. But I mean, like, you don't want to contradict. There are mechanics that you don't want to contradict. But basically, for me, I just think, what is that? What are they feeling? Yeah. And then it's so beautiful that we get to do it from both characters' point of view.
Yeah, absolutely. I've always loved 2 point of views. I've always wanted the hero's point of view. I was never one for reading just the heroines. So I was like, no, but I want to be in his head. I want to know why he's doing that.
I think particularly with in the True Love line, particularly writing the steamier scenes for that, I found the most important thing is that it's not just sex. It can't just be sex. Something has to change. There has to be a reason why now, why here, what's brought them here, where are they going to be afterwards, what is this moment going to change, why is it important to the overall story and their love story, they're falling in love, what will this do to them? And I think once you're focusing on that, the mechanics as well come afterwards, but the emotion of the moment is what really matters.
Yeah.
You're right, it's emotion led, and I think it's, although these are more explicit, true love has always had a sensual element, and it's been up to the author how sensual that is, and some are more sensual than others. Some have been very clearly bedroom door closed. Others have always been several steps inside, and there's no doubt what's going on. It's just not been very explicit. And I think if we, I don't know about you guys, but I do because I've read it, that sensual element has stayed with it, and it's a very big difference between a sensually led sex scene and I think maybe an erotic sex scene, and that it is more about what's inside and how you're feeling, and that's the difference I think between ours and maybe other lines. But yes, lock yourself away, and if you have a large glass of wine, that really helps. But maybe not before the school run.
I was going to ask that, whether you know, a little drink just helps loosen you up.
I had a day that came back from my editor, and she said to me, this is a beautiful love story. It's a beautiful, beautiful story, and it's set in Tuscany. It's lovely. But where is the sex, Rachel? It's a day. Sorry, literally drank wine for 2 weeks and wrote loads of sex.
That's what I sent it to Megan. I turned it in literally with the accompanying email saying, I think the story basically works, but I think I forgot to put in any sex or kissing. Sorry, I'll have that in.
And it's about how it works with the characters, isn't it? It's like reading Ellie Darkin's book that she had come out a couple of weeks ago, and there isn't sex in that. You know, it gets to the end, and you know, and then it's a friends to lovers romance, but it works so well with the couple that are in the story that you kind of understand that they didn't get that far because, and there were so many reasons not to. That it just works. And then you look at Christmas Reunion in Paris, actually by Liz Fielding, and like within, I think it's the first couple of chapters, they are up against the wall and they are going at it, and it is really physical. It's a true love. It's really physical, but it works because what's happening with them at that moment is there are no words that can express how they're feeling, and it's kind of like a physical interaction. But you know, when you're reading it, you're like, there's just so much going on in their head. They're about to explode, and that's how they dealt with it in that moment. So yeah, it's interesting. I think it is all about the characters, and they drive how much sensuality you can get away with, I think.
I definitely find different characters have different levels of heat inherent in them. The book I've just finished, they wake up naked in bed together, and they start from there. But then it takes them, oh my God, so many chapters to get back there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, really, yeah, definitely. I think you're totally right. It's about characters, and sometimes it's right for some, sometimes not right for others. But as long as you have a glass of something with you to keep.
And I would just say that I never have a glass of something because I would not concentrate at all. I think it's a lovely stereotype of the author with the wine and the box of chocolates and the silk robe. And I'm just here to say my life is nothing like that. I would not have a word written.
We have another question, ladies, from Kirsty this time. She has asked, how did you all work together to make the $1 Billion Matches series cohesive? Is there a shared Google sheet?
We did it. It was more email, wasn't it? And we had the document, we had the descriptions of the characters, and we had like the Bible, isn't it? We have the Bible that kind of puts it all together. But I thought it was really interesting that seeing the similarities, like between me and Andrea, for instance, there's something about, I think it's the hotel staff that work in these exclusive restaurants. And we even had the same uniforms, even though we didn't talk about it. When I read it back afterwards, like, oh my God, Andrea went for the same colour uniform. But it's really interesting, the little similarities that happen without you even talking about it as well. But yeah, I guess it was the Bible, wasn't it? Our odd email conversations that we'd have as well.
Not only did we get a nice kind of synopsis of each of the couple's stories, editorial Megan and whoever helped you put together sort of gorgeous photographs for us too.
Yeah, it was lovely.
Our own little personal Pinterest boards, you know, so that we knew where each other's story was happening. So it was easy enough to maybe picture what that looked like, what that felt like.
Absolutely. I had to Google it afterwards, actually, when I got the Bible through and you said it was the Seychelles and the photos came through and like, where is this place? I need to go to it. And now I had to find the lighthouse that's in the book. I was like, I need to see this lighthouse. I was like, right, Andy, we're going there on holiday next year.
I think it's a great deal of overlap in these particular books. I mean, I know I've worked on ones before where there's been a lot of overlap in characters and events and things. Jess and I worked on a duet where my book started halfway through her book and the second of the first half of my book were the same moment in time with two characters who were together quite a lot, but from very different points of view. And that took a bit more finessing, didn't it?
There were a lot of Skypes to get that one sorted. And we wrote one with Scarlett Wilson as well. We did a trio with her, and we took an hour out at the RNA conference to just go and sit down and just hammer out that one.
I'm writing these things down. I need to read these. Wedding Bells. And what was the duet you did together?
What was that? Sorry.
What was the duet you did together that you two did?
Wedding Island. Wedding Island. I forget the duet's name. Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
All my books are packed away.
Right, I'm going to find it.
Jessica's was first, and hers was called. Hang on.
I love the crossover. You see, I really love reading stories. It's called what?
Baby Surprise for the Spanish Millionaire. That was fun to work on. I loved that.
That was fun. We needed a lot of interaction, because with both of those, we had to figure out who their parents were, where their childhood, all these things had to be figured out as a trio or a duet. Whereas with this one, because they're all separate people, they have their own origin stories. We didn't have to figure any of that out. It didn't matter to each person's book. So maybe we weren't quite as cohesive as we would have been if they'd all been four friends, in which case you do need to run things past each other. If you've got someone else's character in your book, it's quite important to say, do you feel this fits? Otherwise, you'll, you know, if you see your character in someone's eyes and you think, oh, I don't think they would have done that.
The duet, I know I sent a lot of scenes over to you going, your character's in this one, how does this work? Is this okay? And there was one scene that you'd written that I rewrote completely from the other point of view, and I had to send that to you and go,
because the different character.
Because they're two sisters who don't get on. So of course, the way that my character would have seen that scene was so different from the way that Sophie's character. That was really interesting to see. But if you, for a minute, I did a little bit. Well, hang on a second, don't say that about Anna. And then I was like, oh, actually,
it's so much fun. I love doing books with other authors and say playing in the same sandpit together. I just think it's the most fun thing we do.
It is fun.
That sounds amazing, to do it the same character from two different points of view, or the one of you are the woman and one of you are the man in the story. That would be amazing. Sign us up for that next.
I think it is interesting because it is subjective, and it's subjective not as you as the author, it's you as that character and how that character's reacting to that whole scenario. It's brilliant.
And then the other thing I think in terms of making a cohesive miniseries is because we were given these exotic locations, people who read my books know that I'm all about the food and the fashion and the music. And so, we had to be true to that this was about writing whisk you away stories. So I spent just an absolutely ridiculous amount of time on Puerto Rican dance styles, like I would just YouTube videos and I want that skirt.
I think what's lovely about it is that even though the four books are very different and they're all very much, one of them's a Sophie Pembroke, one of them's Jessica Gilmore, they're very much our books, but they still work together so well. They fit very nicely together within their own quartet.
Sorry, I think I lost you all just then.
You're back to
We're just carrying on anyway.
It's like, what's going on? And it's not even my house. I'm in my neighbour's house in their garden using their internet at the moment.
Shouting at them, telling them off. Your internet connection's not good enough for me.
I don't know if you noticed, my neighbour just very kindly dropped over a glass of Prosecco for me.
Great neighbours.
Yeah, very good. But then I was slightly panicking. But we're back. So thank you for holding us with me.
And you notice we had no trouble continuing the conversation.
I just carry on without me. So we do have another question now that I'm back. How much planning do you do before writing the first draft? Anna has asked.
Can we go first again? I do a lot. I like to have a very good idea of where I'm going, because otherwise I get stuck and I get lost and I get confused. I like to sit down in the morning and know exactly what I need to write about. So when I'm doing working on a first draft, I'll send something to Megan. I'll send her a basic outline, maybe just like a page summary of what's going to go on in the book, but also really detailing what's up with the characters and why they're miserable and why they can't be involved classically when they meet, what's going to keep them apart, and then what's going to bring them together and what they need to learn from each other and that kind of thing. Because that's the sort of thing that if I don't know it, I always change my mind on it about halfway through the book. At the end of the book, something different, and I have to do it again. But I have to have something to start with, or I don't know what I'm doing. And then I do, once Megan says, yes, okay, you can write that, I do a very detailed scene-by-scene outline of what happens, what changes, why it's there, and then I write. So yeah.
I want you to send me those for my books, please. Can you just become my scene-by-scene person? I'm desperate. Wow. I'm going to kind of next door to you and ask you to just help me. What? I don't do that, obviously. Really, I know backstory, and that is it. So poor Sheila gets from me half a page of this is her backstory, this is his backstory. I think this might be the trope. I'm not entirely sure. There'll be some conflict. Is this okay? And luckily, Sheila says, yes, okay, Jessica, just make sure there's some conflict. And I've had a couple of editors, and I'm really quite nervous moving editoring because I find one of those editors that says, that's not okay, I need more, because I just can't. So, but luckily, they've all allowed me to just send them basically nothing but some names.
I know nothing. I love that.
How can you sit down every day and write?
And some conflict.
I don't know. That's why it's such a painful process.
Yeah, I'm totally with you, Jess. I'm totally a pantser, and I really struggle having too much up front, because then I'm like, oh, I'm a bit bored now.
Yeah.
Like your graphs and your charts and things to figure out.
I did see an author there, I think it was Claire Connolly actually, wrote something like she has the summary of like their key conflict or whatever's wrong with them, and she sticks it on a post-it note on the monitor, and then she just looks through it on the checkpoint every now. That's no problem, right? You make sure you get that across. I'm a bit more like that. I sort of have the core ideas, which often change halfway through. I think I had a baby crop up like 3/4 of the way through a book once. I was like, oh my god!
When in doubt, get them pregnant.
You do that all the time, and I love it. It's my favourite.
I know. I get so bored of writing pregnant heroines after a while, because you do have to take the pregnancy to account. Oh no, now I can't get them drunk and falling into pregnant. Oh no, I can't eat that. She's pregnant.
I think I'm somewhere in the middle. There's no graphs or PowerPoint presentations or anything. I usually end up with something that's about 5 pages that I call a synopsis.
Wow.
I don't know if there's a real definition of a
5
synopsis.
pages.
Yeah.
So
it's not. Again, it's not scene by scene. It's not color coded. But what I like to do is I like to talk with my editor about it at that point, because in addition to, I think has any of us ever had any feedback from an editor that didn't say we need more conflict?
The classic line.
The classic line. I don't
dig deeper. Dig deeper, Jessica.
Edit letters now. It's always just, no, really, you forgot about the conflict again.
Right.
Also, could you just dig deeper, please?
You're in love. Just go with it.
Well, you know what? Because we fell in love with the characters right away, so there's no conflict between us and the characters.
That is the biggest problem, because you love your characters and you're like, they can see it.
Exactly. So anyway, me and my editor, we might go 1 or 2 or even 3 rounds on getting that like 5-page, whatever you want to call it, that I don't stick to, by the way.
This is it. When you write it, everything changes. And I was saying this to one of my other editors the other day, that when I'm writing a book, it's not until I'm in their heads writing the book and I'm doing different scenarios with them that I really get to know them deep down. And that's why it all changes anyway as things come out. How's the baby turning up like partway through the book? It is, they change so much as you're writing them, and they become fully fleshed out as I'm writing. I can't.
There's that moment, isn't there, when you're writing, sometimes you go, oh my God, that's it.
That's it.
But it normally doesn't happen to about 25,000 words. If I had to put them into a synopsis, I would never write another book, I don't think.
No, exactly.
And I do then rewrite it and everything changes. And I think sorry. But if I didn't have it to start with, I just wouldn't be able to get it.
I agree. For me, it's the same as Sophie. I have to have something to sort of hang my hook on. Yeah.
And I think that editorial feedback you get is lovely as well. I mean, editors are just incredible people. I gotta say to Megan, you guys you are just like, you're so insightful. The things that you guys pick up on, and you make us question what we're writing. And I always feel like when I get an editorial letter or whatever, I look at it and go, oh my God, your eyes just open. And it's like, it is an incredible job that you do. And I couldn't do it without you.
We couldn't do it without you either. So without the book, there's nothing.
The story I've actually written to the story I wanted to write, and then you tell me how to get it from one to the other, and it's amazing. I mean, how do you do
it is absolutely incredible.
Teamwork's making the dream work. So talking about writing, Laura has asked the question, and you probably all completely different answers. How many words do you write a day?
Depends how close my deadline is. Theoretically, on my schedule, because obviously I also have a colour-coded schedule.
I love how you
Busted.
Planner, Katie.
On my schedule, theoretically, I should be writing about 2,500 to 3,000 words a day on the days I'm working on the book. In reality, the first part of the book, I write about 1,000 to 2,000 words a day, and the second half of the book, I get more and more and more until the last day, 5 to 10,000, depending on how.
I'm totally with you. At the moment, my book deadline is that far away that I'm now writing 1,600 words a day. And I use Scrivener to manage my whole life. So I'll plug it in and I'll say, I want to finish the book, say 2 weeks before my deadline. So I've got time to sleep on it and read it and sort out the messy first draft because it's going to be an absolute pile of poo.
Anytime now.
So at the moment it's 1,600 words a day, but I know that will not happen. And I only plan to work Monday to Thursday, so that I have a long weekend, because things always crop up in the week as well, don't they? So I might find that I actually end up working on Friday because Wednesday's been taken up by something with the kids or whatever. So at the moment it's 1,600 words a day, but I will get to deadline day and I'll be writing, the whole 5,000 to 10,000 words. I think my most has been 10,500 in a day, and I was
12, and that was a bad day. 12,000 words.
But it's amazing.
Wow.
Well, every day I could write a book in a week, but I can't do that.
I have written half a book in a week, not quite a full book. It's intense, isn't it? But it's what I do find when you're in those intense moments, you're so in the story, your fingers can't work as fast as your brain is telling you the story. Why dictation must be great, if you're like this. And it can produce
dictation is really good, and dictation is quite good as well, even when it's not working, because again you have to fill that silence. I'm not great with silence, so I fill it again probably with descriptions of food, but at least you're filling it. But dictation's better away from the page. When I used a dictaphone, I found it much easier. I felt a bit of an idiot strolling up and down my bedroom with a dictaphone, and once it then lost the words, I lost confidence in it. But actually using a dictaphone is much better, because if you can see the dictation going onto the page, it gives you those hesitancies that you have when you type them. But if you're away from the page, I find it works a lot better, and I do need to get back into it. I try for 1,000 a day, 4 days a week, because of working full time and then working at weekends. But it doesn't, like you, it doesn't always happen. At the moment, I'm trying for 6 pages of the remarkable handwriting in the evening in front of old episodes of ER, which is an entire switch working pattern, because I can't be silent and sitting at a desk. It just is too much going from work to that. So if I end up writing lots of things about Dr. Ross in a non-medical book, we understand why. It's because I'm with series 3 of VR at the moment, and it's amazing.
You watched the reunion, didn't you, of VR? Did you watch the
Yes, I did. I highly recommend it if it's on YouTube still. It's so good to see. It's like, oh, I love you all so much.
You're gorgeous.
I do find that books work at different paces as well, though. I find that I always write slower at the start of the book, and I know I write slower at the start of the book, and partly I've got longer till my deadline, but partly it's just because it takes me longer to write my way into the story.
Yeah, totally. The
quicker I get in, the faster it starts to go, and the quicker I can get.
Absolutely. Yeah, totally.
And I write about 1,500, but almost every day, including the weekends. Because I feel like I don't write that much in a given day, so I try to write for many days.
Yeah, and it keeps you in the story when you're doing it regularly, I think, every day as well, and you're waking up, it's there ticking over. Do you go back over what you've written the previous day as well, and then edit?
It's so funny. is I was just, that master class, those presentations. I don't know if that's as popular in England. It's, leaders in their field that giving discussions. So this mystery writer, Walter Mosley, who wrote The Devil in the Blue Dress and, very well known. And he said he starts his day by reading what he read the day before. So I'm like, well, he's written 60 books and if it's good enough for him, it's good enough for me.
I'm going to try this.
And then I found it took me so long because I had to use every adjective. It wasn't delicate, it was fragile. That it was just taking a ridiculous amount of time. So no, I figure out when I get to the end, it's just pages and pages of crap that have to start over.
I do. I go over, but now I'm trying this whole new system. Instead, what I'm doing is I'm converting everything from the Remarkable into Word on the weekend, and then I'm editing it because it doesn't. It's pretty good, even with my atrocious handwriting, but it's not perfect. So it's easier for me to go through it straight away. And so I'm going through and edit at that point, and then of course I'll do another edit. So I'm kind of doing a weekly edit of Word. It does help me when I go back into it, because otherwise, especially because I've had a day at work and my mind might be somewhere else, remembering where I left it and what I was trying to do. I should leave myself a list, but I'm usually so tired by the time I finish.
Yeah, you're like, I think that's the thing with writing steamy scenes as well. What I find is I can't leave the sex scene halfway through, because then I've lost momentum, and if I'm and I've had to leave it, then I do have to read it from the beginning again to make sure all the feels are building up at the right tempo and it's working.
Yeah.
So with those, I have to go over it first and then carry on.
Good point, Rachel. I can, imagine leaving halfway through.
You hate that.
We'll do a completely different.
You have children to collect.
So, on to a totally different question. What are your 3 favourite attributes of a romantic hero?
Oh, see, I'm really controversial here. Because I do quite like an arse. Not an arse boy. You can bounce a quarter off. I just mean I quite like when they're really quite aloof and a bit, and they don't really know how to smile or how to laugh. And I love the heroine that kind of cracks that. I mean, physically, I don't really mind whether they're really buff or not. It's something about just their attitude and stuff, and how the heroine sort of brings them out of their shell and makes them soft and lovely and gooey on the inside. That's three factors, is it? He's an arse. He's aloof. I don't know.
It's training.
I like men who can do things, who and fix it, who get in there and give the heroine what she needs before she knows to ask for it, and it's not just getting in there and doing what she actually needs and not making it. That's what I like.
Yeah,
I like a hero who sees the heroine. So a lot of my heroines are quite prickly, and maybe aloof as well, or just really not miserable, but they don't have much self-confidence always, or they have that perception that they do, but they don't really. And I like a hero who sees beyond the shell that she has up and sees within. And I probably overuse it a lot because I do really, really like it. I think that's what I like when I watch romance as well. Like I watched a bit of a Hathaway George Clooney moment last night when he just gives her that look. He can see why she feels the way she does. He knows exactly what's going on in her head. And we're just at that bit, spoiler alert, where they're beginning to fall back in love at the end of season 3. We know the twins are going to be on their way in a couple of seasons' time. And you could just see it because he knows her. He's kind of gone through his bad boy bit. He's out of it. And he knows who she is inside and out. And I find that so much sexier than the smile and the scrubs and all the rest of it. Is that bit that makes them the great couple. They know each other and they love each other despite their flaws. I think that's so strong.
Yeah, definitely. What about you, Andrea?
I always say I write damaged billionaires. I'm very interested in a man who has achieved that kind of outward success, but he's still not right. He's still hurting from something that he's never, and he's channeled that into that success, but he's never going to be completely free, and he's never going to be able to love until he processes that one thing that has really driven him, but kind of for the wrong reasons.
Yeah, totally.
And then I like I said, I like to write about travel and fashion and jewelry, and so I got to have a successful guy.
I like when the hero is able to support the heroine as well, to help her become what she needs to be, to help her do what she needs to do on her own terms, in her own way.
Yes.
On her own terms,
her, but just to get her to a place where she can do what she needs to do to be happy for herself. That's
really, actually, in your book, you know, the first of the series, that really comes across so well. You know, that whole thing of like, he will sacrifice love in the sense of keeping her, because ultimately he wants her to be happy and to be doing what she wants to do for her. So he kind of walks away, because, you know, he's saying, yeah, no, you're not taking control of your life. You're still bending to everybody else's will. And that's what makes him so sad to walk. And I'm like, oh my God. So that's lovely, that whole thing. And that really does come across in that book, actually.
good to know.
It's lovely, really lovely.
Everyone read it. So to wrap up, we have one final question. So if you want to just tell me what you're working on next, and tell the listeners a little taster of what is next to come beyond the $1 Billion Matches continuity from each of you. Do you want to start, Sophie?
I do, but I'm gonna have to look something up.
The thing is, it's so far in the past, isn't it? I suppose.
Yeah.
I'm working on a new series. It's a new trilogy. It's called The Wishcliffe Heirs. I know that much. And the first book I've just finished, and I can't remember what we called it.
We called it Vegas Fling to Forever. From Vegas. Yeah, because because like you said, it opens with them waking up in bed naked in Vegas after getting married.
Yeah,
I love it.
Great start.
Going, I've never met you before.
Crazy when that happens.
What? That's the whole first book in a trilogy, and they're really fun to work on. And I am absolutely working on book 2 right now, Megan.
I'm sure you are.
Yeah. When the parents go home.
Fine. Andrea, what are you working on?
Well, just what we were talking about how much we kind of plan ahead is I just sent a document to my editor, and Rachel, it was about 1,000 words. So that's about 5 or so pages. So that's what I'm calling a synopsis. And basically it's about a prince who has to have an arranged marriage for the good of his country, but he doesn't love the princess. And what he wants is just a little bit of freedom. He wants to travel on his own and just kind of experience that, because he knows that's what his late mother was like and would want that for him. And along the way, he finds somebody who is fleeing her own bad situations, one after another. And they decide to travel together. And so it's really about travel. Like, we're going to go on a cruise, we're going to go on a yacht, we're going to go on a private plane, we're going to go on a train, we're going to wear fabulous clothes, we're going to have fabulous jewels, eat great food. But obviously it's about being your true self. And the woman has been abandoned, so it's about trusting. So it's one of those stories where, like, again, we have a lot of fun, but these are real people with real problems.
Yeah, I think that's ultimately what it's all about, isn't it? No matter how rich they are or how wealthy or whatever it is, they're always real people at the heart, and their problems are very real.
Yeah, that sounds brilliant. What about you, Jessica?
Well, I've just finished a book whose title does elude me, but I'm not sure if we finalized it. She says hopefully, which was a little bit like Little Orphan Annie, but with a dog, with a hotelier, billionaire, Duke, Marquis, and a free-spirited traveller who is also working as his dog nanny when he has to rescue a dog for his reputation.
I love the dog in a story.
I know, it's really hard not to let the dog dominate the book. So that's in, and now I'm writing a duet, which I think I've made overly complicated for someone who's about to move house twice in 5 weeks. So I'm doing a swap, and one sister right now is the illegitimate daughter of a king, standing in for her princess sister, while her princess sister also goes off to experience freedom from her arranged marriage. So she's finding herself suddenly having to unexpectedly hang out with the prince who's the marriage is arranged to, which she wasn't expecting. So it's kind of tricky when you do standing in ones, because you've got to think about consent and lots of issues that maybe in the 1980s they just didn't care about. So there's, you've got to be really careful with those lines to make sure everybody knows where they stand, which makes it more challenging, but a lot more fun, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Really interesting. And lastly, Rachel, what are you working on?
So I've got a book out next week. So I got Reawakened out, the last of the Dare month. So that goes out next week. I've got my surprise reunion with the Cinderella. Yay! So that's out in July, August, I think. And then at Christmas time, so the book that I've just finished I think it's called Beauty and the Reclusive Millionaire. So that's like a romance almost, in the sense that they knew each other when they were younger. They hung out together as kids, and there was always that attraction there, but they never crossed that line. And then sort of fast forward 10 years later, she's a famous actress. She's A-list Hollywood, she's totally up there. And he is hiding on a Greek island, his Greek island. He's had an accident where he lost his best friend, and he's very scarred. So he hides from everything, and his worst nightmare is to be in front of the camera. So cue this actress come into his island because she needs to escape a big media storm, because she's split with her co-star, and she needs to hide for a bit. And his sister is like, oh, I think I can work out a way here to make my brother come out of his shell again. I'm going to bring her along. So she goes to stay on his island, and it's just magical. It's a Beauty and the Beast retelling basically, and it's beautiful. I'm really quite emotional. I loved it. They sound amazing, all of them.
Yeah, they sound amazing. Lots in treat for everybody. Well, thank you so much for chatting with me, for sharing a virtual drink with me, for talking about your wonderful continuity. And the first book, The Princess and the Rebel Billionaire, is out now, I believe. So, go ahead and read, everybody, and whisk yourself away to these wonderful locations and lose yourself in romance and fantasy, away from the reality of the world at the moment. But it's been so lovely spending Friday evening with you all, so thank you so much.
Thank you, Megan, as well. Thank you very much.
Wonderful.
So much fun. See you later, guys.
Bye.
Bye everyone.